Hey everybody, Tony D with a very frustrating hot take. Um, this article is an opinion piece about a new law that's trying to be pushed through Congress called the PRO Act. Now, you might remember a law that I talked about in New Jersey on the Piney podcast, which was essentially going to ban freelancers. And I talked about it in my comics and I talked about it in my videos for a couple of weeks. And what this was a copy of AB 5. AB 5 was a law in California that essentially it was designed to go after Uber and Lyft to force them to hire their drivers full time and give them benefits, which they'll never do. Um, and It was a disaster because it also included anybody who was working as a freelancer. And it basically, as the law was written, said that you could work, I think it was like 32 times for an employer, and then if you had to work another time, they had to hire you, which is insane because all the employer has to do is hire you 30 times and say, well, see you next year. Or, hey, let's not hire anybody from California because otherwise we might get audited by the state there. But they passed that law, and it was a disaster. People fled the state. Full-time freelancers who had been doing it for years fled the state. They make good money. I didn't make great money. I made okay money a couple of years. But then they brought it to New Jersey, and it killed freelancing here. Now, they made a carve-out for writers at the last minute and sort of fixed it. I'm not sure what happened to the Lyft and Uber drivers here, but for writers and people who work on the internet, they revamped it, fortunately. And so the law that would have essentially banned freelancing altogether never passed. However, because that was in the queue and everybody kind of knew about it and thought it would pass, because the California one did, sent a chill for freelancing if your address was in New Jersey because, hey, I don't want to have to hire these guys freelance full time because that defeats the point of freelancing. And, could I hire, anyone else in the world who speaks English who's not in California, New Jersey? Oh, yes, I can! Because it's the internet and it's the gig economy, as they call it, which apparently the old farts in Washington don't friggin' understand. So guess what? There's a new law that they're pushing. They might nationalize it. The whole country, gig economy, done. Will be just like California when they passed AB 5. Now, according to this article, they fixed AB 5, and then I guess people went back to work in California, but not before it destroyed a lot of lives and a lot of clients for a lot of people. Because, Democrats can't stand it when people make money and they don't get some of it for their various programs. So, this is an opinion piece in NBC. And you just gotta listen to it. I'm gonna read quite a bit of it. But it's an amazing moment where you see this person trying to wake up from the stupor they are in. And you gotta still bang your head against the wall when you hear it. Because I'm just gonna read some of it. Here's the title. I backed Biden and the Democrats, but their pro-union bill could kill my career. Don't I count as an American worker? And if I don't, what exactly have I been supporting all these years? Let me answer that for you. You've been supporting liars, politicians who don't care about you, who have been in the office so long, they literally die in office. Nancy Pelosi is in her 80s. She leads the Democrats. Judy Kettler, author of Would I Lie to You? The Amazing Power of Being Honest in a World That Lies. Okay, I'm going to try not to be too sarcastic. Last year, like many other Democrats, I took action. I campaigned, responded to social media misinformation, and donated money to candidates. Oh, you responded to social media misinformation? Mm-hmm. That to me sounds like, oh, I countered any other narrative that came my way because I had to get rid of Donald Trump. That's what it says to me. I celebrated when Joe Biden was announced as the winner of the presidency and when Democrats took back the Senate. Oh, did you? I also wrote a book to remind myself, and all of us, that honesty was something that still mattered, despite having the most dishonest person imaginable leading our country. Oh, it's like Donald Trump was a black hole for dishonesty, but everybody around them so wonderful and honest. You know, like all the people who pulled the Russian hoax. So honest they were that they spent 3.5 years investigating something that they knew was fake, that they knew wasn't true. Oh, but you believed it. People like you believed it anyway. I don't know what she believes, really, but I'm just so frustrated by this article. But I am happy she's sort of kind of waking up. But now that Donald Trump is out of office, Orange Man bad, I'm facing a painful truth. I'm facing a painful truth. The man that I prayed would become president could sign a piece of legislation that would kill my career as a freelancer. Oh no! You know, California is completely run by Democrats, top to bottom. And yet, they passed AB 5 and destroyed people's careers. Oh, but that didn't affect you. I guess you weren't in California. The strangest political cognitive dissonance I've ever experienced. Right now, my party is pushing a bill called the Protecting the Right to Organize Act, or the PRO Act, and in an ostensible bid to help gig workers exploited by employers who won't give them health care coverage and other benefits. But because of a problematic clause in the bill, it's far more con than pro for me. Clever. The bill could end my ability to be my own boss, set my own hours, and otherwise live the American worker's dream. Oh, there's no could. If this bill passes, we're effed. The problem with the measure, which is being voted on in the House on Tuesday, I think it passed the House. So pray for the Senate and call your senators, by the way. It's the PRO Act. Tell them not to vote for it. Its way of determining who's considered an employee, instead of using the IRS standard, which can tell the difference between an independent contractor and an employee, it uses the far narrower standard from the 1930s called the ABC test that can't. According to the ABC test, businesses need to treat someone like me as an employee with all the rights and benefits that entails, even if I'm writing only a single story for them. Ditto for all types of creatives who support themselves through gigs, like actors, artists, and musicians. How many companies will continue to use our services under these circumstances? Let me give you the answer. None. They literally have the entire planet to go find other people to do this. It's going to kill jobs for freelancers. It's going to essentially outlaw freelancing. Oh, but I'm glad you finally woke up to the guy you elected and the people you elected. It's simply not feasible. Being an employee might sound like an improvement for me, but the least I've ever made as a full-time freelancer was still far more than I ever made on someone else's payroll. Yeah, that's because when you do gigs, they have to pay you more. Because you don't have benefits, and they know you got to pay your own benefits. And the better you are as a freelancer, the more they tend to pay you, depending on the gig. So, yeah, if you can work steady, you can make really good money. If you can work steady. I have supported my family this way for 20 years. My husband is a stay-at-home dad. We buy health insurance on our state's exchange, which admittedly isn't cheap, but the trade-off is worth it because I have the flexibility and independence and am not subject to the whims of an employer. Yeah, That's what's great about freelancing. If I got to go to the post office in the middle of the day, I just do it. If I got to take a couple of days off, it's not a problem. I'm the boss. It's awesome. It's an awesome life. It's going to be ruined by these idiots. The idiots you helped elect, because they don't care about you. What they care about is beefing up the unions who they think are going to support them forever. You know, the unions, the crooked unions who support the Democrats, even when during this last election, most of the rank and file were interested in supporting Donald Trump. Instead, they supported Biden. And what did Biden do? Well, his first week in office, he signed executive legislation to kill the Keystone Pipeline. 10,000 union jobs or so disappeared. And now the unions are PO'd at the Democrats. And if they're smart, they're going to start talking to the Republicans. Because Trump showed that a businessman like him can create jobs. Now, you may not like Trump, and obviously you don't, Orange Man Bad, but there's no arguing where the populists are now. Oh, but tell me again how you were so relieved to vote for Biden in the Senate. But 1 in 5 American workers who are independent contractors, that option might disappear. Last year, when California enacted a bill known as AB 5 that supposedly protected gig workers from exploitation, it used the ABC test. The stories of lost work in more than 150 professions were heartbreaking. Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. And that's why I freaked the F out when they tried to do it here. Now I'm freaking out again. Although I have a regular gig, I'm trying to get back into freelancing. But how the hell am I going to get back into freelancing with this? There'll be no work for me. Zero. I'm going to have to move to Canada to freelance? Those guys have even more taxes. And we heard multiple times how the law particularly hurt women, people of color, and parents of children with disabilities who often choose the flexibility of freelancing. She had to make it woke, right? Especially if they face workplace discrimination. The legislature later had to pass a bill to clean up the mess, and voters overturned part of it in a referendum. Yeah, sure, that only took a few years while everybody else went broke or had to go get a regular gig. But hey, I'm sure it'll be easy to overturn. I mean, it's so easy to talk to Democrats. They're so efficient and wonderful and responsive. Remember how you guys elected Bernie Sanders as your candidate? Oh, wait a minute. California should have been a wake-up call for Democrats, but the result did nothing to stop the House from rushing to pass a national legislation to enshrine the ABC test in the law. Thankfully, it looks like the Senate is a little more willing to apply the brakes. You better hope. And one of the most disappointing aspects of how this has played out, instead of listening, Democratic lawmakers are doing what I've long criticized Republicans for, resorting to talking points that play well to a base while overlooking the facts. You mean they're politicians? Oh no! House rules allowed this bill to be voted on Tuesday without full committee hearings, so no chance for testimony from freelancers like me. Yeah, they don't want to hear it, because they're too busy serving the billionaires who funded their campaigns, you dummy. I don't mean to call her a dummy, but I'm just so frustrated. Like, people like this are finally waking up to the populist movement and the Republican side. It's maddening to talk to Democrats these days. Absolutely maddening. But her job's finally on the line, so finally she's starting to question things. It would be wrong to say no one is listening, however, because Republicans certainly are. They've offered amendments to eliminate the ABC test from the bill, which I am grateful for, even though I know we agree on little else. This is what's so frustrating. This was obvious, painfully obvious to those of us who weren't obsessed with Orange Man Bad. The Republicans are now on the side of the worker. They're populist now. Trump is turning the Republican Party into a populist movement. The whole party has changed. And yet, I think someone like this is trapped in the same effing dynamic. Oh, but Republicans are really horrible people. Oh, but on this one thing, I guess we agree. But I disagree on everything else. It's like, open yourself up a little here, lady. Look at what's being offered. Look at what the Democrats have done to you. Biden straight up lied to you. He's said anything he could to get elected. Not that he did much campaigning. Mysteriously, in the most secure election ever, he was elected. And honk honk wink wink, he's the most popular president who's ever held the office. When I reached out to my own Democratic senator here in Ohio, Sherrod Brown, his office pointed me towards another bill introduced that he claims would fix the ABC test issue for freelancers like me. To me, this means he knows that my livelihood is at risk, but would rather take California's approach by cleaning it up after the fact, when lives have already been damaged. Yeah, because Democrats aren't responsive. Because Sherrod Brown's probably an older, more reasonable Democrat, being in Ohio, kind of under the gun to be more reasonable. So maybe he can clean it up. I don't know. But if this passes, we're effed. For years, we'll be effed until they clean this up. And in that time, people will lose their jobs, their houses. They'll have to find work. And there's going to be fewer jobs. Fewer and fewer jobs. We're headed for a recession at least. Maybe a depression. Oh, but let's cut jobs. Let's kill jobs with this bill. I know what I believe in. Things like an end to systematic racism. Oh, great. What the F does that have to do with your livelihood, lady? I mean, really. You're so effing woke, you're blind. Okay? This wokeness isn't going to help you. Okay? Your response or other people's response to people because of their race or ethnicity or whatever, what does that mean in a bread line? Nothing. If we collapse the economy, all your wonderful wokeness isn't going to matter. Your children won't have jobs. They'll be starving, as will you. Oh, but please tell me how you're all in on ending systematic racism while the economy collapses around you. Things like an end to systematic racism, better support for families and children through your taxes, increased voter rights, meaning more mail-in voting, and equity in schools. Equity? Oh, I'm sorry. You don't like the equity the Democrats are trying to present to you right now? Wouldn't that make us all even, right? Oh, yeah, you'll be out of a job. Oh, but you'll have equity. Everyone will be out of a job. See how it works? That's the only way you can achieve equity, by dragging everybody to zero. Yet now I find myself looking at Democrats' slogan and questioning my assumptions that their bills truly help the people who need it most. No, that bill is to beef up the unions so the unions have more money and people to vote for them and give them money. That's the shakedown. I recognize that I've bought into broad narratives about the power of the people, usually pushing the most progressive-minded feel-good policies that have easily repeatable language about things like the dignity to work. Yeah, you have. But when you're the one whose work is suddenly threatened, it's a bit more complicated. Oh, isn't it? Yeah, it's a bit more complicated. Then you're suddenly reading the fine print because now it's your gig on the line. It's your house that could end up for sale as you get foreclosed upon, or you gotta sell to get out and downsize into an apartment or in a crappy side of town. But tell me again how you elected Joe Biden and the two senators from Georgia. It was so honest, So honest. Yeah, that Warnock guy, he seems like a real honest dude. You know, he seems super honest when his wife came out and started to, I guess his ex-wife started talking about him and some of the charges that have been levied against him. Yeah, sounds honest. Joe Biden, oh yeah, honest guy. I mean, couldn't get more honest than plagiarizing speeches. I mean, that's pretty honest. The first time he ran for president, he had to bow out because he got caught plagiarizing speeches. Oh, but tell me again how honesty matters. The PRO Act is specifically aimed at strengthening employers' rights to unionize, which I support. And certainly some workers are exploited by corporations that make them independent contractors to avoid paying benefits. Do they? Show me. Show me the link. Show me the link of these massive amounts of, where are the exploited workers you talk about? Or is that just a narrative you believe? Because you assume, since they're big companies, well, they must exploit workers somehow. But you know what? That's why we have the IRS test. Use it. But don't enact sweeping legislation that squashes the vast majority of independent contractors and call it part of your plan to create an economy where everyone can succeed. Oh, now suddenly she doesn't like equity. That's equity, That's equity. Okay? You can't increase equity by bringing everybody up. Not everybody can be a millionaire. But you can create it by pushing everybody down. It's a great slogan, and it plays well on a Twitter video, but its hypocrisy has long been the ABC test as part of your... But it's hypocrisy as long as the ABC test is part of your plan to do it. I'm still holding on to my idealistic Leslie Knope-ish tendencies. Oh, really? I didn't notice. I still believe good ideas and earnest people will be heard. But right now it feels like I'm being sacrificed for support from unions, the major interest group pushing this legislation. Yeah, it's going to strengthen them. They're going to force more people to be in the union. People will have to pay or they can't work. And given the vitriol my colleagues and I are getting on Twitter, like repeatedly being called scabs, I don't think there will be any holiday cards this year. You went on Twitter. Yeah, they're real sympathetic, aren't they? Bunch of woke idiots. None of them are even working. You think they're in a union? I'm not looking for sympathy. Good, because I don't have any for you. After all, I'm a well-paid professional with plenty of lucky breaks to my name. What I'm looking for is to be heard by the party I always believed best appreciated the breadth and width of America. Really? Where? Build back better? Absolutely. But gaslighting independent contractors is a terribly poor foundation. You just admitted in your article that the Republicans are the only ones listening to you. You said it. Oh, but you had to qualify it by saying, well, that's all we believe in. I'm not a Republican. Please don't cancel me. That's what it sounds like to me. It's ironic that this section of NBC says think. You're finally actually thinking. Maybe you should get off Twitter. Maybe you should think about who you vote for. Maybe it shouldn't be a politician who's been in Washington almost 50 years and never lift a finger to help anyone. Other than himself, of course. Maybe you should look into the Hunter laptop scandal. Yeah, just maybe. Just maybe look into that. And tell me how honest you think Joe Biden is then. How honest do you think a guy is who probably got 10 from China? 10 stacks. It's infuriating. That's all I can say. It's absolutely infuriating reading these thoughts. Because she's already talking herself right back into her old patterns. It's like these patterns in her brain are there and she's trying to get off the track. And she gets off just a little bit because she has no choice because she's losing her job. Oh, but if they gave her a job and undid the damage, right back. I'm almost happy this happened to her, just to shake her up. But I'm getting screwed because I'm a freelancer, and these are the exact kind of things I'm screwed for. The only thing that's helping me is right now I got a regular gig, which is screwing me. Not the job, but long story short, I'm in trouble in terms of my health care, because if I make too much money, I lose my health care. So I have to upgrade my job to something bigger, or I have to quit, or somehow get health care. But that's just me. Poor freelancer. I would love to go back to freelancing. But with the PRO Act, that'll be impossible. That'll be 2 years down the tubes. Easy. 2 years of them fighting it out until someone like Sherrod Brown finally pushes it through. By that time, no one in the States will be a freelancer. Freelancing will be dead. And then maybe it'll come back in some small way, but they'll kill it. The only way to stop this is to call, and I'm always saying this, call and email your senators now. Beg them not to vote for this act. If you want to give me a birthday present, this is what I need you to do. Exhausting. Exhausting, Judy. You're just exhausting.